Hello there, everybody, and welcome to Dry Run. I am here with the wonderful Kent C. Dodds. Kent, I don't think we've ever been on a show together at the same time, so I am so excited for this. I want to tell you a little bit about my past with you because I've been so impressed with all the work that you've always done. And a couple of times in my very early careers, you came in as like a guest host on a Zoom call, and I got to open up for you. So I was like the opening band for the headliner, Kent C. Dodds. I think
That's funny.
you talked about JavaScript, AS. What is that called? Where you like know how the code works
Oh, yeah, the
under the hood.
ASTs. Yeah, man, it's been a
ASTs.
long
That's it.
time since I worked with
Yeah,
stuff
dude.
like that.
It was awesome. But you gave such a cool talk. I love the cool talk that you. And I think you've done a little bit of a shift recently. Am I right?
Yeah, I would say a bit of a shift is a good way to put it. So I've been teaching full time since like 2019. Before that, I was even teaching on the side. So like when the time period you're talking about, when I was way into ASTs, was when I was still working full time at PayPal, I think. And so yeah, it's teaching has been a lot of fun for me, and I just pretty much teach whatever I'm really into. So I created testingjavascript.com because I was way into testing and that was
Excellent.
just something I was really interested in. And before that, of course, like ASTs and I did a lot of Angular JS and then I was really into React, and so I made Epic React.dev, and then I got way into full stack development, and so Epic Web.dev.
There you
And
go.
now I've just really pivoted over to AI and everything with what MCPs enable. And so now it's Epic AI.pro. Unfortunately, the .dev was stolen, so we're going pro now.
Okay. Well, until you can buy it from whoever that Epic AI dev
Yeah,
is,
I offered.
right?
I did. I offered thousands of dollars for that,
And they said no.
and they said no.
Wow.
Also, there was epic.ai is also a domain that
Okay.
I offered more money for that. Still not in like hundreds of
Not
thousands or
not
anything.
enough. Okay.
They were
Yeah.
listing it for like 328,000, and I was like, no, that just
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not that valuable to me.
Awesome. The other thing that I know that you have been doing that I've seen is you do roll, what is it called? The roller, the one wheel roller, the one
Oh
way
yeah,
roller.
I've
You
got
like,
one on my wall right back here.
dude,
I don't know
that
if you
is
can
so
see that
cool.
with the way that things are clipped, but yeah, there it is.
Oh, there it is. Okay, it's next to the snowboard. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. And do you do ramps on that? I feel like I saw you on a ramp, but I think you're on the rollerblades. I think you're on
Yeah,
rollerblades
yeah.
now.
I also have rollerbladed. When I was a kid, I was good enough to be sponsored. I never got into any competitions, but I was doing flips and jumping and like lots of really fun things on rollerblades. But yeah, I haven't really done much with rollerblades in a long time.
You're talking like Bones Brigade sponsored, like that sort of like sponsored, like
I mean,
was
I was in a small town, so I don't know that
okay.
I could really manage a big sponsorship or anything, but I knew other kids my age, teenagers, who were sponsored, and I was like, I'm better than them.
Awesome. So is there shirts that exist? Can I get a Kent C. Dodds rollerblade
Man,
shirt?
so I do have a line of Kodi the Koala shirts that you can just kcd.im/shirts, and
Okay.
Kodi is you can get him snowboarding, skiing, playing soccer, doing a backflip. I feel like there's one
Right.
other riding a one wheel as well.
Nice. That is
Kodi is
awesome.
my mascot. It's the koala.
Okay. And it's based on you, loosely based.
Yeah, loosely based. Yeah, he's into the stuff I'm into.
Okay. Does Cody have an MCP server?
You know, KentCDots.com does have an MCP server. Kodi
No
doesn't,
way.
but I could probably make a resource or a tool for Kodi. Just like, what is this koala thing all about? That would be
Yeah.
cool.
That's kind of fun. I guess we should talk. Let's talk a little bit about what MCP servers are. It's been a big day. We had a big demo day. I saw that we were hanging out in the chat. And actually, chat, if you're hanging out, if you want to head over to YouTube, the Cloudflare developers
Wherever it is.
YouTube. Head over there. Yeah, head over there. Jump in the chat. Tell us where you're coming in from, and we want this to be interactive as possible. This is Dry Run. We are an open mic for developers to build what they're building, and Kent has volunteered to come here and do that. Come and build that. And we're going to talk a little bit about MCP, but as educators, Kent, let's break this down a little bit. I'll take the P. Protocol. A protocol is a way for two things to talk together, and then after that, it's all on you.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah. Well, model is a reference to the AI model, large language model typically, although it occurs to me that like maybe there could be another type of model that could be applicable in this scenario. But right now, all that we're working with is like Claude Desktop or Claude.ai now has support for integrations, which are MCP servers, which is very exciting. And then also, Cursor, Windsurf, VS Code are all way bought into this. The OpenAI folks have an SDK that has support for MCP, and I fully expect that with the momentum of MCP, that all the big players will have some mechanism for MCP. So, anyway, that's the model portion, and then context. I think we all know that the right context is what you need for an LLM to be useful to you. And early on in the like when ChatGPT showed up, that wasn't the first time that people have been able to interact with an LLM. Like you can always run those on your machine or on some big server somewhere. But that was the first time that regular people could get that set up without having to, get everything set up. You just type into an input box on the web. And so that was really huge, but it couldn't actually do anything for you. And so they introduced the concept of tools, which was very like everybody had kind of their own proprietary way to do those integrations, and those still required significant glue code to make tools work effectively. Like in some cases you could say, here's my API, like do what you will with it. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work very well. And so Anthropic says, hey, let's make a protocol for this tool calling so that the vendors can create their own MCP servers. Then whatever LLM host application you have, as long as it implements this protocol, we can communicate. And that eliminates all the glue code. And so you can imagine that like before that, you would have Slack would have their API and they would break something and it would require OpenAI or Anthropic developers to go and fix that integration. Well, now Slack can be in charge of their MCP, and as long as they're
Yeah.
honoring that contract, then it doesn't matter how it changes, which is
Yeah.
enabling the Jarvis future that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, it does feel a bit like npm, like official npm packages, right? Like it's like they've packaged up this is how the thing is going to work. Here's a little SDK for you to use. It kind of feels in that space. I've been really enjoying that. And then watching today, I don't know if everybody caught it today, but earlier there was this great show of I think 13 different people who had built companies who had built MCP servers on Cloudflare, which super honored to like have that happening, because we made it pretty straightforward to be able to build on top of us, and so they came and they showed off their stuff that they built, and dude, I was blown away. What was the one that made you go the most,
Well, for sure it was the Stripe one because
dude?
that one, maybe it's not as interesting to people who aren't currently building MCPs because it was very much like for the MCP developer. But as somebody who's been working on MCPs, I have an app that I'll showcase here in a bit where I'm just trying to see how far can I push MCP. And I thought, what if I can make it so that I have an entire app where the only way to get to interact with it is through MCP. And that means like registration and login and everything is
Oh,
just all
fun.
through MCP.
Nice.
And
Nice.
of course, like I need to be able to authenticate who you are. So there is some like out of band stuff. So I send an email, though that actually isn't implemented. So we send the token in the logs, and then I just copy that. But yeah, so you'd get an email with a token, and then you can validate that you are who you say you are. And what's really cool about that was I was planning on like adding Stripe integration because Stripe has this really simple mechanism for that with payment links. So you can just create a link and then people can go over there and pay it. It's very, very easy.
Yeah, and you
But
get the
yeah,
call back.
and then
Yeah.
you just get
Yeah.
called back and you
Yeah.
can make calls to their API. It's like you don't even need their SDK. It's that easy. So anyway, watching the Stripe demo, I was like, oh, that is way easy, way, way easier than what I was imagining I was going to have to do. But then also the Square MCP demo was just like, look, I made a store and then I made it do all of these other things. And what was really interesting to me, or maybe unfortunate, something that I would like to see more of, are demos where you take all of these different MCP servers and they interact with each other, not directly because we're not writing the glue code, but the AI assistant is actually acting like an assistant. It's saying, okay, you want me to create a store and send that information to your mailing list and then like add this product or whatever and tell your developers to fix this page. Like I can do all of that. So like first let me go to all these things. So it's actually like a human assistant. And every one
Yeah.
of us gets that. And that I
Yeah.
think is really cool.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think we're going to start seeing a lot more of that with being able to build your own clients, right?
Mhm.
Like we're seeing building the servers, but being able actually to run that client, the client that connects to all of those, I think is going to be really, really
Yeah,
cool. Yeah.
in my vision of the future, I think that there will be primarily one client that is your Jarvis. And so, like,
Hmm.
it'll be kind of like browsers. So we do have multiple browsers, and hopefully we don't have one that's like the definitive winner, but like we have some competition in that space. And then everybody is building MCP servers, and that client is interacting with all of those. And then behind the server, for sure, there can be other MCP clients there where there's like agent to agent communication and that sort of thing. But I think that the future or the best user experience from a user interaction perspective is that I just have one app that is my everything. It does everything for me. And then it can dynamically determine what's the most suitable tool or set of tools for me to use.
Nice. Yeah. Are you starting to build that already? You
You
keep
know,
saying your
man, like
Jarvis. Do you got
it
him?
just seems like such an obvious thing to do. I hope I don't have to because my goal is just to teach people how to build MCP experiences. And not just MCP, but I also want to teach like full AI stuff. So that's what epicai.pro is all about. And I actually am, I don't know if it's ready yet, but I'm listing another workshop for MCP. So if anybody watching right now, go to epicai.pro and check out that workshop coming up. But yeah, so I hope that I can just be the one teaching, but if nobody builds Jarvis, then I'm going to have to build Jarvis myself, and I don't I don't want to do that. With what Claude did today with Claude AI, I feel like they're taking a step in that direction, and I expect that to inspire others to start building the competitors. And I really see these AI assistants as a replacement for the browser and MCP servers as a replacement for websites. And I think that's going to happen in the near future.
I think it's happening so fast. There's a question here from somebody on YouTube. I'm wondering if we're actually going to see some OAuth on the stream today. I think everybody's like really
Oh,
excited to see some OAuth.
yeah, so like, yes, we can show you OAuth. I think building it from scratch in an hour would be tricky. Cloudflare has some really awesome tools for that, so we would definitely use those tools. The tricky thing, if you're going to build an app that lives entirely inside of an MCP, um, then your authentication flow is a little bit different. And I can explain that when we get to showing
Yeah.
off some of that stuff.
Yeah. How are you feeling about shows? I mean, are we ready? Are we ready to
Yeah,
do the
I'm
open
ready to
mic?
show some stuff.
Let's do
Yeah,
it.
let's do it.
What do you got planned? What are you going to
Well,
cook
so
up?
here's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I'm very much not the kind of person who wants to have an app generated for me. Like Cloudflare has this really cool button that says like deploy on Cloudflare. You just press it and poof, you have an MCP server and you're ready to go. And I think that is way cool. But I think that it's really good to understand what that button is doing. And so we're going to build from scratch. And I'm actually not going to start with Cloudflare either because I think
Okay.
that keeping
No
it as
offense.
simple and minimal as possible is really good. And then we can like slowly build upon it. So that's kind of the goal. I haven't actually practiced any of this stuff because I really wanted it to be raw.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
have
man.
patience with me if it doesn't work right away.
For sure. For sure. Let's do this. Open mic. That's the point. That's the
All
point of
right,
this. Let's do
cool.
it.
Let me, now I'm getting a request. Here we go. Screen 2. Is that the one I want? Nope, I want screen 3. Here we go. Okay, sweet. And I'm going to stand up here too.
All right. Awesome. Hey, Kent,
I'm,
I see Anthropic. Is that what I wanted? Is that what you're hoping to
yeah,
share?
yeah, we're looking at,
All right.
yep,
Okay.
at Claude.
Let's.
So I've got, yeah, a couple of tools in here. One for the weather and one for Epic Me. That's the app that I was talking about. You can see we've got authenticate and validate token and who am I and log out. Those are my authentication tools. I'm not going to really show a demo right now because we literally just watched 2.5 hours worth of demo. And so like, this stuff is cool. If you want to see a really cool demo um, of like multiple MCP servers working together to accomplish a task, then I posted it on my X just like 2 hours ago. So people can go
Okay.
take a look at
Nice.
that. It's pretty cool. Anyway, I had to restart my machine, so forgive me if I need to get a couple of things um, updated. Let's see, workshop. Here we go. I'm gonna just fix my font sizes and all that stuff so that it looks good. And there we go. And I was also deploying this MCP server as well. So
Nice.
yeah, let's see. I don't want to start here though. We're gonna create a brand new directory. So let's pop open the terminal. We'll go to my desktop and I'm gonna say make directory and go into it. We'll call this our MCP demo. Open that up in cursor. And here we are, totally blank slate, starting from scratch. We're going to pop up the terminal and npm init. Why? Because we use JavaScript in this family, and
Nice.
it is just the best. Our type is module because we're not living in the 80s anymore. And yeah, let's go ahead and install a couple of things. Now, I'm going to kind of cheat a little bit and reference my workshop material so that we don't spend a bunch of time like, remember, oh yeah, I need that package, here's the config,
Yeah.
whatever. We're just going to
Nice.
steal all of this stuff. So here are the dependencies that we're going to want. Whoops. We'll stick them right here. So we're going to bring in, yeah, we won't talk about that. The Model Context Protocol SDK. The Model Context Protocol organization on GitHub has SDKs for TypeScript and for Python, and there's like C# and Java, and the community SDKs as well. I'm normally kind of the guy who's like, I don't want an SDK, and I just want lightweight thing. But this is definitely one where you want to use the SDK, not because it's super complicated, but because the SDK is quite nice.
Yeah. And it's changing, right? Like it's
Yeah,
changing. So
exactly.
like
It's evolving.
let them iterate. Yeah, let them
Yep.
cook. Yeah.
Yeah, let them cook. We also are going to be using Zod. So the way, and actually we'll talk about that when we get into it. And then we also have this MCP inspector, which we'll want a script for that. So I'm going to grab these scripts as well. And yeah, who's going to test their stuff? I don't know. Maybe we'll get to testing, so we'll throw NV-test in there. We're using TypeScript because we also, again, don't live in the 90s. I'm just kidding. I should say like the 2010s, I guess. That was,
Right.
yeah, it was actually
Those are
pretty
some rough
recent
times.
that we were all jumping onto TypeScript. So I'm going to bring in my TS config. That's coming from the Epic Web config stuff, so we don't have to bother with configuring all of that stuff. And then I'm going to make a source index TS file right here. So this is the beginnings of everything. I should probably also install all of our dependencies. And let me just make sure. Yeah, I think that should be enough for us right now. Oh, you know what? One more thing. I'm going to grab the types because TypeScript has got some issues. Some things could be improved, and so I've got a TypeScript reset that I use in all my projects
Nice.
too. It's kind of nice,
Nice.
kind of handy. Okay, great. There you go. That's setting up a brand new TypeScript project in 2025. Some people will say that's too many files, and I'd say, yeah, that's fine, I guess, if you feel that way. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to make a main function, and this will make it async just for the fun of it. Maybe we're going to need it to be async. Oh, what the? This is complaining probably because it doesn't know that we're inside of a module. Oh, we don't have any exports. Oh, that's funny. We'll have some imports here in a second, but we'll just add an export. Now we'll be happy with that.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
What good's a module without an export, I guess. That's the logic.
Indeed.
Right?
Indeed. So let's also, I'm going to change this to just a dev. There we go. So nrd in my terminal is aliased to npm run dev. So when you see me run nrd, that's what I'm doing. So we're using tsx to run the TypeScript. You could also use bun or something like that, but I'm a fan of tsx. And so great, we've got our hello world. Awesome, we're in a good place. So what we want to do now though is we want to create an MCP server. Now, there are multiple ways that you can go about making an MCP server communicate with a client. And depending on what you need will determine how you expose that client, how that communication happens. Now, communication happens over what's called a transport layer. And so the specification says the client is going to send these kinds of messages that are formatted with, it's a JSON RPC format. So like it gives you the method it wants to call and here are the arguments and stuff. And then the server has a specification for what the server responds with. On top of that, the server can also proactively send messages, in particular for sampling or for sending notifications of progress, that sort of thing. And so this is one of the reasons why the MCP spec started with a standard I/O transport layer, which we'll talk about, and an HTTP server sent events transport layer. Because for the server to be able to proactively send notifications to the client, you need to have an open communication. So this open pipeline between the server and the client. Now, people in the serverless world were like, hold on a second, we can't just have these open requests because like we need to be done having our conversation, having that request response, in milliseconds. And so
Right. Because we don't have the server. What are we supposed to
yeah,
do?
exactly. It just needs to be able to request response. Can't we do that? And we can even do streaming. Like streaming is fine, but we just need to be able to close down that response. And so the MCP spec was updated just recently to add support for what's called HTTP streaming. And so that request response can just be one request, one response. It can stream in stuff, but then it eventually closes out. And so it can be a little bit more stateless. Now, I was never bothered by this server sent events because Cloudflare handles that just fine. Like Cloudflare is one of those that it's like, yeah, no big deal. We don't need to worry about that because Cloudflare infrastructure is just insane. So cool. I'm not a Cloudflare shill. I'm just a Cloudflare fan, and
Yeah.
it's very, very cool. I'll tell you what, it was Sunil Pai who got me in on Cloudflare.
Sunil is so bummed he can't be here right now to take. So we'll make sure that we give him that shout out.
Yeah. We'll
We'll
also
we'll
give
have you
him
on
some,
again. We'll have you on again and play with him.
give him some grief. I think he's in India right now, so
He's packing for his trip super late right now, and he's going to be in India all next month. So we'll get lots of shots of Sunil in India eating stuff
yeah.
this whole month of May.
Lucky guy. I love India. So yeah. So in any case, now we have technically 3 transport layers, and you can even write your own. So the transport layer that is built into the SDK, there is one for standard I/O, so that is the client spawns a process and then communicates to that process over standard I/O. Another is the server sent events, so the client makes a request, that request stays open, and then finally is the streamable API where it makes a request and then the response comes in, streams in, and then it's over. There's a small limitation with that API because it means that the server can't proactively send stuff to the client. Once that request is over, then it's over. And so this is why I would say that, like, yeah, for sure, you can use the streamable API for many use cases, probably most use cases of MCPs, but there's still a need to have an open connection for some really advanced, cool and exciting use cases like updating the tools that you have available for you and stuff like that, which I think is it's pretty interesting, especially when you think about building an authenticated MCP where all the authentication lives within that. So before you log in, here are the tools you have, and after you've logged in, oh, now look at these tools that you've got. And so like having that, or maybe even an MCP server that serves as a proxy for others. And so, you need these additional tools. Well, let me go to the Figma MCP and I'll proxy some of those. And now look at all these other tools you've got. Like some really interesting things. But with all that said, the transport layer is technically in the spec, but the fact that you can make custom transport layers is an important part of the spec. And so I could see very easily somebody building an MCP server transport layer that goes over like serial inputs and stuff like that to control like Internet of Things stuff, maybe. Like it's pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah. I love that they have those. The MCP spec, like check that page out if you haven't seen that already, because they do break the transports and you also said sampling is in there and resources, and I know we'll get to all that, but like definitely check that spec out because there's a lot of cool stuff happening there that I don't think we've been touched. I think there's a lot of stuff that we haven't even touched yet.
100%. Yeah, I completely agree. It's very exciting. So let's actually make and sometimes I say NPC, like a non-playable character.
Yeah.
I swap that out a lot. But yeah, MCP. So there you go. We're going to make an MCP server, we're going to start with the standard IO protocol because it's the easiest one to get going with, and then we can upgrade it, and eventually we'll get into the Cloudflare stuff. Frankly, Cloudflare is the place you want to host your stuff here. There are other hosts, and in fact, there are. A lot of people have reached out to me saying, "Hey, you should use our thing. Like, we are built for this," and that sounds really interesting. And it's just really hard to compete with Cloudflare, frankly. Anyway, we're gonna bring in something from the Model Context Protocol SDK. We want the server, and we're gonna do this standard IO. Autocomplete's funny. We want the .js. So with that, we're gonna get our server, or that's our transport. So this is gonna control how those messages get communicated across. And then we also need to actually get our server. And it keeps wanting to do it this way, but that's not how you do it. So we're still early days with this stuff, folks. It doesn't know what it's doing. I believe it's in server MCP.js here, and then we're going to go MCP server. And now we're going to make...
That's coming from Cursor.
Yes, yeah. Cursor is the one that's messing all this stuff up. But it's sort of like kind of figuring out some of this stuff. So no, we're going to go server.
It's learning too.
Yeah. And it thinks like maybe that would make sense. Here's what we'll do. I'm going to dive into this, open that up, and then we'll open this up. And guess what? Now Cursor understands how this API works.
No way.
At least a little bit better.
Just give enough context. Yeah.
Yeah, just open that thing up, and now it'll have a little bit more. Well, maybe not. Okay, so we're going to call this our MCP demo. And our version is 1.0. Those are both required. Frankly, I actually don't know why you need a version here. But it makes sense that in the future, maybe there will be an upgrade path or something like that. But most of us, like I said, are going to be running hosted. And so the user is always going to get whatever the latest version is.
Maybe you don't want to, maybe if I'm hosting multiple servers, that's why, right? Like if I'm going to host a server, I'm like, oh, I'm going to give you some new functionality, but it breaks the older one. I'm going to give you the 1.01, and when you connect, you can connect.
Yeah, but you would even still, you would have to have a specific URL for that older one, because if you're pointing to that URL, it's kind of like a website. And this is why I say like the MCP is the new website, because you always get the latest website. And sometimes you get clients who are upset about the way that you change your website. And sometimes they have enough money to make you deploy the old one and keep that around. And I expect that will also happen here.
Yeah, it's true.
So then as a second argument, we're going to configure it further. We're going to give it some instructions. What should our MCP server do? Craig, what should we have this thing do?
Ooh. I kind of like the koala thing that we were starting on at the start of this. Can we do a little Kodi koala that like?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so this MCP server is this server allows you to ask questions, not about the weather, about Kodi the koala. I
tried a cat first.
Yeah.
Autocomplete.
So we'll go with that. Maybe we'll enhance this a little bit more as we discover some more of the tools that we're using here. So with that, then we have a server, but we don't have any way to communicate with it. So we're going to say, we're going to make a transport, and then server.connect to that transport. I think this is async, but maybe not with the standard. Yeah, it's async. So we're going to add a wait right there. And then we'll also add a console.error. We're going to use error because with standard IO, the client is going to initialize this server by spawning a process. And then it's going to listen to the log or the standard out. And so if we do a console.log, that'll go to standard out and it could confuse the client. I would say that most clients should probably just recognize, oh, this is standard IO, so I'm just going to throw away stuff that I don't understand. But better to be safe than sorry, I say. So we're going to say the Kodi server is running. Oh, I typed server twice. There we go. And let's change the name also. This is our Kodi MCP. There we go. Kodi MCP server is running. And now we don't need that export anymore because we got imports, so it knows. Okay, cool. Let's see what happens with our dev. If we run nrd, boom, Kodi MCP server is running. So that's exciting, but not really. We got a log. Hooray! We actually want to do something with this. So here's what we're going to do. You remember this inspector thing that we installed right here? So
Hmm.
this is a way that we can interact with our MCP server using like a debugger tool. It's actually really cool. It's an application that implements an MCP client that you can configure and control and all of that. So we're going to run npm run inspect. That's this MCP inspector. And that's going to open up, it starts a server because it does need to run the client in the standard IO, but then it
Nice.
also starts up a web server as well. So we're going to open up that web server, which popped open right here for me. So let me grab that tab, yoink, and we'll scooch this over here. There it is. And with this, there are a bunch of, it supports all the different transports. We're going to do standard IO right now. Our command needs to be npm run dev. That's how we're running our server, right? So um, we need to get the path to this package for that to work. So I'm going to say pwd, put it in my clipboard, and then we'll bring it over here. And you'll see I've already done this a little bit with my workshop. So I have npm, I add silence so that npm doesn't spit anything out at me, and then I give it this prefix. A lot of people don't know about this prefix, but basically it allows you to run npm within a given directory. And so we want to run npm within this directory that I just copied. Here it is right here. And then we're going to just run dev. And with that, it's going to start up. And boom, there it is. Kodi MCP Server is running. It initialized. So what this does, this is a first request to our MCP server, is to say, hey, I'm a client. I want to connect to you. Are you cool with that? So initialize. And then our server responded with, hey, yeah, I'm a server. I'm cool with that. Here's what I can do. And here are my capabilities. I don't really have any. And so MCP, our client here is just saying, hey, the server can't do anything. We haven't configured anything for it to do. That's not entirely true. I actually opened a pull request on the inspector this morning because one thing it can do right now is it can answer a ping request just to say, hey, are you there? And so I added a PR just this morning to add the ping button right here. Just, you can technically do something. The SDK handles that for you automatically. You also have access to the sampling and routes, but I don't know that we'll get to that today. We're already halfway through, and sampling is way cool. I could talk about that for a long time, but yeah, we're not going to get to that. And no MCP clients that I'm aware of support sampling yet anyway. So looking forward to that future. So I can talk a lot, and I talk kind of fast. Do you have any questions for us so far, Craig, or should we just keep going?
I think this is looking good. So let me make sure that I understand what just happened. So we have an inspector here, and it is running. It's doing a no npm run dev in the directory. The server is running, and it's kind of maintaining the standard input and output. And now we're gonna talk to it. We're using this input and output on the local thing here, but it's not really a server. It's here local on your machine. But this kind of how things started out too, right? Like they did kind of run locally on your machine.
Yeah, yeah, and for a while, I think a lot of people kind of thought that that was the end game. Like you just okay, now you install all of these things on your machine, and they're kind of like apps that you install on your phone, and you configure with this JSON thing, which so I guess it's a developer tool, right? And I feel like a lot of people let that kind of mess up their or limit their view of what this could be. So yeah, it's a lot more than just for developers. The user experience for adding MCPs just improved immensely with Claude's release today, where now they call them integrations, which is perfect. That's a regular person word.
Right.
And so it's very easy to add those integrations. The auth flow is all implemented. Everything is beautiful. So I'm very excited to get to use some of that.
Yeah, same. Let's schedule for when samplings come out with clients. Let's schedule you for with a future one of those, and we'll do another one of these. So like, let's not feel like we're leaving anything. We're gonna go. There's a lot. This is the first time that Kent's on dry run.
That's
This is
an
the
honor.
pilot.
Hopefully I don't mess it up so bad that you're like, you know what? Never mind. Okay, good. So we gotta get our server to do stuff. And
Yeah.
right now, most clients support best tools, but you notice in here we also have this thing called resources, another thing called prompts, and those are also part of the MCP. Technically, Claude does support resources and prompts, but I actually don't know how to use them in Claude. I couldn't find any documentation. So right now we're just pretty much focused on tools, but resources are pretty much like, if we're thinking about this as a website, it's your GET request to like get information. So anytime you're like, oh, here's some additional context that would be useful for the LLM, that should probably go in a resource. Prompts are reusable prompts. So if I was building a tool that allowed me to generate alt text for images, maybe, and I have a really good prompt for that to make sure the LLM covers all the right things, then I might have a prompt for that. In my example, for the Epic Me example, that's a journaling app, I have a prompt to have it summarize a set of journal entries for me. And so you can define like time ranges and tags that you want to have it summarize. So like things like that. But tools, that's where things get really interesting. Going to get like additional context is really cool. It means you don't have to copy and paste it yourself. But tools, now the AI can actually start doing stuff for you. And that is where things get super exciting. So I'm actually really, if any of these things had to be the first thing that we have available, I'm glad that tools was. So we're going to say server.tool to define our first tool. And we're going to have let's have Kodi the Koala do a kickflip, right? That's the thing that they always say, right? When you're riding around on a skateboard, do a kickflip. They say that to me when I'm on my one wheel sometimes, and I'm like, you can't do kickflips on this thing.
Do you know how dangerous that is?
Yeah. You know how many, I've got a bunch of kids at home. They need me to come home. Like, are you crazy? But yeah, so we're going to say do kickflip. And here's a tip. Don't put spaces in this because it's not specified, but at least Claude doesn't like spaces in these. It took me like 3 hours to figure out the error message that I got when I put spaces in there. So we're gonna, and actually the other thing is, everybody does underscores for this, but I think that's coming from the Python developers.
Yeah.
Do a kickflip. Come on.
Yeah.
I'm a JavaScript developer. So yeah, Claude is like, yeah, it's sort of kind of getting it, or Cursor is. So, yeah, so we're gonna just start with this right here. Okay, so we're gonna return content text. Kodi did a kickflip. Awesome.
Okay.
All right, so
cool.
Let's come over here to restart our server. Now we've got tools is available. So this is kind of funny. You're actually supposed to configure the MCP server to tell it what capabilities it has. And our inspector was just like, oh, I can see that you have tools. I'll go ahead and call it good. I'm not sure whether that's coming from the SDK or what, but yeah, it somehow knows that it has the capability of tools. And in fact, here, if I were to disconnect, refresh, and connect again, and then here we're going to see, yeah, it has tools. Okay, interesting. But you're technically supposed to configure this up front. So we're gonna do that. And we're gonna say tools, and you just give this an empty object. And now it says, okay, you have the ability to do tools. We can also do, that goes under capabilities. You can also do prompts and logging. This is the first time I'm seeing experimental, so that's interesting. And then you have completions. Let's see what experimental does. Let's see. No, none of that is real. So we're going to just pretend that doesn't exist. There are a lot of experimental things happening right now. Okay, so now we've got the tools. Let's list those tools. Do a kickflip as a tool. We'll run the tool. Kodi did a kickflip. Ta-da!
Nice.
Congratulations, you did a kickflip. This isn't all that interesting. But where things do get interesting is the stuff you can do inside of this callback. And let's make this a little bit more concrete too. Let's actually add an MCP server to Claude and Cursor and just see like, okay, I've got this. What can I do with this? So coming over to
before we get there really quick.
Yeah.
John's asking, he would love to see you build an MCP client from scratch. So I think that's in the future. So I think you're getting picked up for a second season.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm just gonna, What happened to my? Did I know what happened. I'm just gonna give you a little teaser. How do you suppose I test these MCP servers? My goodness, I'm making a custom client. So yeah, we can definitely
Hey, nice.
we can
Awesome.
definitely do that.
Awesome.
Yeah,
That's super handy.
I do think I think most developers who are like building websites these days in the future will be working on MCP servers rather than on
Yeah.
MCP clients. I think that again,
Yeah.
MCP clients are like the browser, and there aren't a lot of developers who work on the browser. There are a lot more developers who work on the websites. That's
I
not
like
to
to think I
discourage you from like doing this yourself. Like go knock yourself out. It's a very exciting world right now.
I kind of like to think about it like how many people wrote the fetch implementation, right? So Axios has this. There's an Axios web client that goes and does stuff. So like I think that client is that. And like I haven't written one of those, but I've used Fetch and I've used Axios and I've used these different client things. So
Hmm.
and I've also used that in a lot of my projects. So
Hmm.
I think it's eventually you're going to bring a client in to like an agent or something like that. I know that
Yeah.
Sunil's been playing in that space a lot about like add an MCP server to this agent using a client that's inside of this NPC inside of this agent, and it's just wild west out there right now. But like,
Yeah.
but I see that coming. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Cloudflare with the agents um, package on npm makes that sort of thing really easy. Which honestly, I'm very bought into the future that Sunil is envisioning and is building, and y'all are building at Cloudflare. And so once we get to the point where like a lot more people are getting into this, Cloudflare is just going to be right there ready to serve them, which I think is very cool and exciting. Okay, so a couple of let's get this wired up with
Yeah. Yeah.
some
Use it.
AI so that we can actually
Yeah.
experience this in an AI
Yeah.
context. Well, let's just do it in Cursor because I'm right here in Cursor. We're going to look at our settings, Cursor settings. We'll go to MCP. I already have a couple of MCP servers. This is a local server that's pretty rad for anybody going through my workshop material. Allows you to talk to the workshop. It's pretty sweet.
Fun. Nice.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. So we're gonna just make Kodi, and then this is going to be just like what we're doing over here. So we're gonna have our command be npm. We're gonna give it these arguments. This one is gonna be comma separated. Yeah, man, I love AI assistance.
Wow. That was
Oh man,
great.
it's so great. But yeah, so it's going to run npm silent prefix mcp demo run dev. And
Nice.
now it automatically kicks off. And here it didn't like that very much. Let's try it again. There
There
we
we
go.
go.
Okay, so
Okay.
now I'm
So
going to
so
say,
you're inside of Cursor. Cursor in this case is behaving because you can add MCP tools, right? Because you have dev tools that have MCP servers, so you want to add them to your. Okay, got it.
yeah,
Got it.
precisely. And here in a second, we can add it also to Claude, to like a more normal human type app. Um, so yeah, let's just say, you know what? I need to open up Whisperflow. This is how I talk to my computer. It's amazing. Can you make Kodi do a kickflip? It's not Kodi with a C, but let's see if I can figure it out.
Yeah.
I see there's a Kodi
We'll figure it
configuration.
out.
I see.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I'll use a special command. Okay, so here it's no parameters. We'll talk about parameters here in a second. Run the tool. Kodi did a kickflip.
There you
Awesome.
go. He did a
Just love how
skateboard. Look at that.
enthusiastic it is. Let's throw an emoji in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
is
it's
cool.
AI. You got to. You
Yeah, it's
got to.
beautiful. And
Nice.
so there you go. Yeah, now we're interacting with our MCP server. Now you can imagine that we can do much more interesting things because this is running on our server. And so we can talk to it. Well, technically this is running on our local machine because it's standard IO. And so we could talk to the file system and we could do all sorts of things. There's a Playwright MCP server that interacts with the Playwright browser. And the Epic Workshop app also like interacts with the Epic Workshop app locally. Lots of really cool things that you can do with this. So anything inside of this callback, that's you. And the AI just told you to do stuff.
So what you'd be doing here is like between 16 and 17, you'd be doing whatever it is you're going to do. AI is passing the handle to this callback. You do whatever you would do, and what you return there is what it gets to play with, and generate. Right. That's why he did that that's why he did. You landed a sweet sweet kickflip.
Yeah.
Which is also sweet. Yeah, and gave the skateboard. So it used AI sauce around what you returned from that.
Exactly. And I'm glad you brought that up. That is an important point, is that just because you returned this does not mean that the AI is going to display that to the user. And so I actually typically take this as, it's easiest to think about this as the LLM is the user's assistant. And so you're not talking to the user, you're talking to the assistant. And so if you were a human assistant and you're taking a call to reserve a table with a dozen roses at the place, you're not going to say, like, I've created all this stuff for you. You're going to say, like, for the user, or for, for your boss or whatever. Yeah, typically you...
Roses for your boss.
Yeah, I don't know, like he's taking out a hot date or something. Something.
I thought I was buying roses for the boss. I missed the analogy.
Yeah. I was channeling my Thoroughly Modern Millie. I don't know if you are familiar with that show, but
I don't know.
Yeah, there's a part in there where she wants to date her boss, but then she's her boss's assistant, and he asks her to reserve a table for him to go with another girl, and she's really sad about it.
No. Okay. Tragic.
Okay, so let's talk about like parameterized stuff, though. I think that's also pretty important here.
For sure. Like
sometimes you're gonna have here. Let's do another tool. Server tool. Let's have it do a flip. And then this time we want to like control how many flips you want Kodi to do. Okay, so
and
here we're
direction. I want to know if we should go forward or backwards.
Yeah,
that's
exactly. So here we're going to say our parameters, that's what the second argument is like direction. And here we'll bring in Zod so that we can configure this with standard schema. Okay. So if anybody familiar with standard schema, it's basically it's a standard for schemas. And Zod implements this. There are a handful of others, but I'm a big fan of Zod, and that's kind of the default for a lot of people who are building MCPs as well. It's just to use Zod because it's really good. Yeah. So we're going to take that direction.
Super popular these days.
Yeah. It's fabulous. I've been using it for years. It's a very handy tool. So yeah, direction, and we'll also do count. Yeah, max 10 flips. Okay.
That's a fast koala.
Pretty hardcore, I must say. So we're going to take that count, and Kodi flipped direction count times. Okay, I'll just leave it up to the viewer to figure out what that would mean for talking to what database or doing whatever. But this is how you can parameterize these tools. And so if we come over here and I'm going to say refresh, now we're going to do a flip. And I can say, can you make Kodi do a flip? And let's just see what it does for those parameters. It's still using C for Kodi. And it gets it. It gets me. See the specific command. Great. Let's have him do a flip. It looks like it wants us to chose to do backwards and count one. Yep. Yeah. Kodi flip backwards 1 times. And and it understood that, even though I got the S in the wrong place, like it still gets it.
We might not even see it, like you were saying. And then it responded back. Yep.
What's interesting here,
and it gave you suggestion. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, what's interesting here is, what if I was speaking Spanish? The LLM would still understand me. It would make the call, and then it would come back as English, and it would probably translate it to English or to Spanish, right?
You know Spanish?
I do not know Spanish. How would I say this in Spanish?
It's a vuelta, I believe.
Here, let's we're doing this just off the cuff.
Let's do it.
Do
10 back flips, or do front
flips. And let's go translate that.
Turno.
Is this it?
Volta. I was right. It is a volta.
Yeah. Volta. Okay, we'll copy this.
See how this. Yeah, we're just gonna copy. We're not gonna say it.
And actually, you know what? Let's do a new. Have Kodi do 3.
There you go.
We'll just start it from the very beginning, so it knows, or maybe it thinks I don't speak English. Lo siento means sorry.
Sorry, but I don't see an option for front flips specifically.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Huh. Do I not have front?
but I
But you're
can
right. I
have him
didn't.
do. Look at
That's
that. So that's a
interesting.
good. That was a perfect demo,
That
Kent. That
worked
was
out.
great for you to add it that way.
Listo. Kodi.
Yeah,
I don't know how to
yeah,
say all those words, but it
yeah,
looks
yeah.
like
He did.
it
Yeah,
gave it to me in Spanish.
yeah. Would you like to do another trick? Is what it ended with there, which is
Hey,
fun.
that is cool. So I'm not saying that the days of translating our apps is over, but I'm just showing you that like
Yeah,
maybe it is. I don't know.
yeah,
Like, could
yeah,
I
yeah.
translate this into Spanish and then have it do the reverse? Do we have time to do that? Probably not. We gotta get to Cloudflare. So let's move this all over to Cloudflare. I'm gonna accelerate our pace because we only have like 9 minutes
Okay,
left. So we're gonna
okay.
go Cloudflare, MCP server, Cloudflare. There is like a no, that is the MCP server for Cloudflare.
Right, right. Because we
Deploy.
started building ours, right? Because we want people to be able to go jump out there
And
and
by the way,
users of
if you
Cloudflare.
need an example of a good MCP server that's open source, this is it. It is great. There are a lot of really awesome tools and like it's all OAuth, everything. I use this a lot. Yeah, good one. Okay, let's see. There. Okay, why don't you teach me, Craig? Do you know how to build an MCP server with Cloudflare?
Where is the best place to start with
Here we
this?
go.
Probably
This is
from
what
the
I was looking
agents
for.
page. There you go. You got it. There's your
Okay,
deployed
so we're gonna
Cloudflare button.
grab this guy. We're gonna go to our terminal and we're gonna run it right here. Yes, latest Cloudflare. All right, sweet. We're gonna go, yeah, authless. That works for us. We don't have time to do auth. Auth would be a whole other thing. So we're gonna go authless. That works. Do I want to use Git? No, we're not gonna bother with that, right? Well, you know what? I should have. It's okay. Yeah, I want to deploy it to Cloudflare. Heck yeah, I do. And doodaloo, and it asked me, made sure that I was signed in. That's cool. Boom, my MCP server. I hope I don't do this more than once, I guess. I assume that it would probably figure it out and just make a new one
Yeah,
for me.
yeah, it would. It would for sure.
There,
You
we're
you just
gonna
haven't
just
deployed that one before.
grab my MCP
We
server.
got a concern about the OAuth promise about not
Yeah,
getting to it.
that's
You're
not gonna
right.
happen. But here,
That's not
I
going to
will
happen.
I'll
We'll
send
come
you
back and do
to
it.
yeah, Epic Me MCP on Epic Web Dev. That's where you want to go. The build is broken right now, but that's an easy thing. In fact, I could rerun it right now and it would work. I just messed something up. Okay, sweet. So this has got a lot more stuff in there. There's a Wrangler stuff going on in here. I can maybe talk about that. The most important thing here is our index. And you'll notice a couple things that are similar. So we are still pulling it from the standard SDK from TypeScript. We're getting this MCP agent from the agents slash MCP. And so what this is it's a durable object. And if you don't know what a durable object is, then the best way I can explain it is stateful serverless. So if that doesn't help, then go complain at Sunil about it. But that was like when he finally said that, I was like, now I get it. So anyway, it's very cool. But here we're making state on our MCP or on our durable object. The state is the server. And you can also actually have technical state, and that's a whole other thing too. But so here's our server for this agent. During initialization, we're going to create these tools. We've got a calculator and stuff, which is pretty neat. I'm going to get rid of this and replace it with ours because I'm happy with ours. We're going to just copy that over here and
In the
paste
same
those
way that you
there.
changed the name, maybe also.
Yeah, change the name. This will be our Cody's Flipper. Sure.
Cody's Flipper. I like it.
That is great. Okay, awesome. And then this will be cleaned up in the future. But what this is doing is it's handling both the server sent events case and the MCP or the what am I thinking? Streaming, HTTP streaming
Yep.
case. In the
Yep.
future, this will probably look a little bit more like this.
Yeah.
Wait, what is it called? My MCP, mcp.mount slash maybe, or like whatever you want. So MCP probably, I expect that's what it will look like. And it'll just handle the SSE stuff on its own in the background. So anyway, now we've got an MCP server. We can deploy this. So npm run deploy, and this is
if you haven't seen, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was gonna say, you'll note that he didn't say where to deploy it to. It just deployed to wherever, right? That region Earth is what we call that.
Yes, region Earth.
That was really quick. Yeah.
I'm excited for region universe when we're on the moon and Mars and stuff. So that's the next frontier, Craig. Get started on it.
Yeah.
So one thing that's important to note here is that durable objects are managing state, and so it does need to have a place to store that. And so that's configured here in the Wrangler. It has SQLite that it's managing. We're calling it MyMCP is the class that we export that needs to be stored in that durable object state. So like I said, I normally like to just build it from scratch so you can see every piece. Those would be the pieces that I would call out if we weren't building it from scratch. So, okay, let's go ahead and get this added to Claude. Now, Claude AI just added support for integrations, and I haven't signed up for Max yet, and so I can't do that. So what we're going to do is the old way, which is in here, the way you used to do it, like somebody who lived in dark ages, is you'd pull up this
early 2025.
Yeah. You'd pull up this, and yeah, we'll call this Flipper. I want to call it Kodi Flipper. And right here. So this is what you would have to do. You'd use this MCP remote. You'd give it the URL and all this stuff is going away. Like as of today, if you're using the latest of Claude AI, I expect the desktop will also be added for integrations. And in fact, they mentioned in their blog post that in the future, even pro accounts will get integrations like this in the future. So that is exciting.
Sweet. And this MCP remote is something from Anthropic it's from MCP.
Gotcha. Yeah, actually, MCP remote. That is from Cloudflare, actually. What's his name? Yeah, he invented styled components and is an awesome guy in Australia, who is working at Cloudflare. But he worked on
Glenn.
Yeah, it's Glenn.
Yeah. Shout out Glenn.
Don't tell Glenn I forgot his name for a second.
I won't. We'll edit it. We'll make some AI there.
Yeah. Sweet. So right now it's just saying I have 2. So I wonder if I didn't save this. No, I saved it. So let's just try it once more. I have 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Come on, let's restart.
We could go a little bit over unless you've got something coming up right after.
Kodi Flipper has got. You know what? I know what the problem is. We need to give it the right URL.
Yep.
So here we go.
Yeah,
now it's going to work.
Because it was able to support both sides of that, right?
Yeah. So I don't know that I could do MCP because my Claude desktop hasn't been updated to support the streaming spec.
Gotcha. Yep.
So we're using server sent events, but I didn't have anything on there, and that was the problem.
Yep. Sweet.
Okay, awesome. So we've got it. We've got Kodi Flipper, and now I'm going to say, could you please have Kodi do 5 left flips? It's kind of weird to call them left flip. What is even? I guess that's a cartwheel in the air.
Yeah.
Boom. Kodi Flipper, do a flip.
Nice.
Always allow. Never want to stop Kodi from doing flips. Done. Success. So that's cool. This is not running locally.
Right. This is hosted on the server that you just pushed from a repo to go there. Incredible. And companies could do that, right? Like we saw that today. We saw people going and hosting this, and then what that's going to look like is you've got these tools that are now in your client that you live in. I mean, I don't know about you, Kip, but I live in my ChatGPT or my Anthropic here, just like playing, or like you showed from Claude.
Yeah, and like I have a pretty ambitious vision for what this is going to look like, and I think actually humanity in general. We all have an ambitious vision for what this will look like. And so I have a talk there we go. This talk here kind of lays out what my vision for the possible future could be. And it's basically Jarvis and the computer from Star Trek. And like you said, you pretty much live in your client. And having a client that can do more is hugely powerful. So if anybody is curious what my vision is for this future, go take a look at that. And if anybody wants to learn how to do all of this stuff, then come take a look at this workshop. I've got it on sale right now till through Sunday.
Nice.
But this will actually be the third workshop that I run. The first two sold out very fast. So yeah, if you want to learn how to do all this stuff with like exercise-based experience, then I would love for you to join me.
Awesome. And I can't wait. I'm gonna go sign up right now, Ken. Thank you
Sweet.
for showing that. Super fun. I can't wait. And like I love where this is going, and I love how you were able to do that. I gabbed with you for a long time, and even got that in like 40-ish minutes. You created one locally. We ran it on the server. Amazing. Cody's doing flips.
Yeah,
Amazing.
it's awesome. It's very exciting. And honestly, several of the demoers today mentioned this, but it's way easier than you think. And which, from an educator standpoint, is like I'm incentivized for things to be harder, right? But it really is like it's a lot easier than you think. And I think like we're at the very beginning of this. This is kind of like when the browser first came out and then JavaScript showed up, and now we're doing like these little simple things. And so I'm sure a lot of people said, "Oh yeah, it's so easy." And then eventually like it grew to this big thing that's like a difficult discipline. I expect that we'll get there with MCPs, but right now it's just a really exciting time.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's all sorts of, like we saw, there's all sorts of different parts of this protocol as well on top of the tools, which I think is just going to change. And I think you're right, Ken. I think everybody's going to be used to be like, should we build a mobile app? Should we build a web app? It's like, we need an MCP server. I absolutely believe. And I think that like jumping in to start doing this stuff is great. Like go attend a workshop, go learn how to do this stuff, because it's going to be part of your job. And a lot of people who are out there who are concerned about possible job replacement or things that their jobs disappearing, this is how you get in front of it. I really believe that know how to do this stuff because you're going to get in front of it. So I think that's super important. So Kent, thank you so much for being here, for sharing and dropping knowledge, and awesome open mic. Like really great work there. Like
Thank you.
for something you didn't even plan. Really excellent. I can't wait to have you on the next one. I know Sunil's going to be super bummed that he wasn't here on the first one, but he will be on the second one for sure. We'll make that happen.
Very good.
And we'll build some stuff together. So thank you so much, Kent. And please, everybody, check out Kent's stuff. I'll link all that stuff for those of you watching this in the future. I'll link all the stuff in the notes of this, and we'll tweet out all the stuff too. So thanks so much, Kent, for being here.
Thank you so much,
Appreciate
Craig,
it.
and thanks everybody for watching. We'll see ya.
Bye, everybody.